one of the biggest check engine lights, the warning, the red flag is going to be like, how is our intimacy and how is our sex life?
And what we find is often if couples come to us and they're not having the intimacy or sex they desire, we also kind of look at that as like the tip of the iceberg. If that is not going well, often there are things underneath it that are the obstacles, right? They're not communicating well. One person is feeling resentful of this, that, or the other. They don't have a shared vision, so they're spinning in circles, right? And so that can be the indicator, right? The thing we see on top, and there's a lot underneath it that we dive into and help unpack that then makes connection and intimacy more available.
Hello and welcome to Married and Magnetic, the place for entrepreneurial couples who want to stay happily married.
In each episode, we have real conversations with ordinary couples doing extraordinary things, sharing achievements, everyday joys, challenges, and the mindset and tools that make love the greatest strategic edge.
We are James
and Angela Mitchell,
a real-life married couple. She's a counselor,
and he's a coach,
parents to 3 kids,
and co-founders of Love Intentionally. We've ridden the highs
and lows
of building businesses while working hard to stay happily married. We've lived it, done the work,
got the t-shirt,
and are here to help you do the same.
This is Married and Magnetic, where love, business, and growth collide. Let's dive in, y'all. What's up, loves? Welcome to another episode of Married and Magnetic, a Love Intentionally podcast. We are your hosts, James
and Angela.
And we're the Mitchells and the co-creators of Love Intentionally. And Love Intentionally is a place for couples, mainly entrepreneurial couples, to come in and stay happily married and, dare we say, get back to the honeymoon phase. And if you're here and you haven't checked out our free resources yet, be sure to check out our free resources. And what's really cool is this episode is going to highlight the free resource we have in each of our 3 pillars, the 3 main ingredients to weatherproof your marriage when life starts to life. And also, if you want something a little more personalized, we offer a free discovery call with anybody who wants to connect with us and just see how we can help and get you some of those get you a more personalized approach. Say, here's the tool that's going to get you where you want to go the most. So welcome to this episode where we are going to share with you part of our framework, the 3 main ingredients for a successful marriage, the 3 pillars. Ultimately, like, how we get the marriage to the next level of success, and not just that external success, but the internal success that helps you look and feel as good on the inside and outside as you want to.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So our 3 pillars, and we have really identified these as the 3 things any marriage needs to really be successful, right? That all 3 ingredients are required, and we'll explain why in a minute. But just to tell you the 3 to start off.
Should we wait through the whole episode to tell them?
Tell them at the end.
Because, I mean, seriously, it's called Love Intentionally. And so these are the 3 areas to be super intentional about. And the first one is
having your vision.
She didn't know I was going to.
I didn't know having your vision. We also call it your relationship North Star. So that is where you are going. What are you creating together?
Mm-hmm. The vision's what pulls you forward, because life's going life, right? And every now and again, we get bogged down. We create this vision, we create the goals, and then it's time to go get them, time to hustle, time to get that grit going, the grind phase going. And that's the tough phase. It can be the tough phase, not always. And that's where the vision is going to make sure that you do what's needed to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's that classic, right? If you're like going on a road trip, and if you don't know where you're going, the destination is really hard to get there, right? Now, if we choose that we are going to drive to San Francisco, there are many different routes and roads we can take, little detours on the way, but at least if we both know we're going to San Francisco, we're headed in the same direction, right? There's some direction
to it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, let's go to San Francisco. We're going to get that picture of us on the Golden Gate Bridge, eat some oysters.
Yeah, so the vision's important for a few reasons. One of them being that it keeps us on the same page and on the same team. Right? So if we both have come up with a vision together, and when we do these activities, we also recognize that there might be things on my kind of life list, my, bucket list, if you want to call it, things I want to do in life that are my personal things that might not include James, and vice versa. Like, for instance, he wants to spend a night in an ice castle.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds terribly cold and uncomfortable to me. I like soft, warm surfaces. So he will probably need to find one of our children or a buddy, someone to go with him, because I don't really want to go on that trip.
Of course.
I don't know. That sounds challenging. I don't really play golf, but it sounds challenging.
One.
So that might be on James and not mine. So there are going to be individual areas, but we also want to see, like, as a couple, where are we headed? What is the life we want to create? Where do we want to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years? hoping we live that long, and make sure we're going there together. So if we have both bought in and kind of agreed on this vision we want for our life, then it keeps us working together towards that goal. It's like we're in a canoe and we're rowing in the same direction. Because if he's rowing one way and I'm rowing the other, we're not going to get very far. So
And what's cool about this vision too is that said it keeps us on the same team, but it doesn't mean we're playing the same position. You can't have two pitchers out there at the same time on the baseball field. So when we're creating the vision, when you're creating the relationship North Star, it's also leaning into where your strengths lie. And then also figuring out who's going to do those things that don't necessarily want to get you there, which we'll get to more in the strategy component. But just understand that there's different roles that you're going to play while being on the same team.
the vision also, I think, can keep things exciting and interesting, right? If we're have a sense of this life we want to create together and what it might look like and what it might feel like, then it also creates that it gets us out of just the mundane day to day. It gets us to dream a little bigger, to think a little bigger, to get outside of, again, just the monotonous details of day to day life, and it can be kind of an exciting. It's something we actually call creation intimacy. One type of form of our intimacy is when we're creating something together. It creates that excitement, that passion, that connection between the two of us. So that's another reason that vision's important.
And the vision will get updated. What's happened in our lives, what we see with the successful couples that we coach is that they create the vision. I want the kids, I want the house, I want the vacation house, I want the ski house, I want the car, whatever it is, right? The vision is, and then they're going to reach that. That's the whole point of having that vision. And then what you get to do the next, and this is a key thing, is you get to revision.
Well, first you get to celebrate making it there. I think that's a part people skip.
That's a really good
We
part.
don't always want to move the goalpost, right? We get to celebrate when we reach these, goals, visions that we have. We get to celebrate and enjoy. And then we go, cool, now what next? Right. So I think for us, it was, we had a lot of goals around creating our family and, getting our careers established. Yes, getting the house in the neighborhood we wanted where our kids were going to grow up. We call it the prom picture house. We don't know if we'll be there forever, but it's the house the kids are going to take their prom pictures in. And we wanted 3 kids, right? Like all the things, right? And we got there. And then it was a fun, I remember, marriage retreat where we got to go, wow, we really accomplished those things that we set out, in the first 10 years of our marriage to accomplish. And then it was fun to go, okay, now what's next? And get to dream again. And sometimes, and we've seen this with several couples we've worked with, sometimes people kind of, the dreams stopped there with like getting the family and the stability and the careers and house and everything they wanted. And then we've had people come to us that are going to be empty nesters and going, we only really dreamed this far. Now what do we do? The kids are going to be out of the house and we're still going to have decades together. Like, now what?
Especially for entrepreneurs, like we're builders. We have a vision of something we want to create in the world. And then for a lot of entrepreneurs, they build that business. They don't enjoy maintaining it. They're the builder. And so this is that permission to really own that part of yourself, build the thing that you want, celebrate it, get that sense of arrival, enjoy that space, do a really awesome trip. And then on that awesome trip, go, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah. So pillar number 1 is vision. Like we call it often your relationship North Star. Where are you headed?
And pillar number 2 is
strategy.
She got it that time.
I was ready. I was ready that time.
Yeah, it's the strategy. It's the logistics. It's the day to day. It's how are we actually doing the activities on a regular basis that bring that vision into reality.
And I see it as kind of twofold. So there's the part that's just like, how are we operating our day to day life so that it's not chaotic, right? So that home is running smoothly. Because when home is not running smoothly, that creates often tension, resentment, stress. And also, how are we working towards that vision? What are the goals and what are the daily actions and monthly actions and annual actions that we're taking to get towards that? So it's part, how are we working towards our goals and how are we making sure life is running smoothly in the day to day?
Part of that's the management of the household, the management of the responsibilities that you once prayed for, asked for, that you've manifested. Now that we've got these responsibilities, how are we continuing to manage them on a regular basis without watching a bunch of resentment build quietly or not so quietly in the household?
Yeah, and this is where I think a lot of couples come to us with some friction in this area, is that whether it's unequal distribution of the household labor, or one person is not feeling good about how the household is running or things are going or their mental load, or it could be that they're arguing over finances and how they're managing money, right? So This is where a lot of the daily friction can come in, is that how are logistics of our house and our finances and our schedule running, and are both people happy with how they're going? Are both people getting their needs met, right? Are both people getting a chance to have alone time or exercise or those kind of things?
Yeah, we see that friction come in because this is that space where people are doing the things that they don't necessarily love doing, but they're important to get done. And especially when we see transitions happen in the marriage, whether it's a kid moves out or you have a new kid or you start a new business or you start working together, anytime there's a big transition, that's also a call to go back and look at how the duties are being distributed and who's doing what, who owns what, who's got the bigger mental load. And really, what we also see is that most of the way people manage their household and those day to day logistics is what they were modeled from their parents. And so, while that might not necessarily be how you intended that, or like, we're not going to have that sort of traditional style, you can really drift into it in this particular area of life. And then that, again, is where the friction is going to come up the most.
So yeah, we get really clear, and we have some of our, online courses for this, but get clear on all the things it takes to run our life, from paying bills to planning kids' birthday parties to signing up for soccer, right? Whatever the things are, and who owns it, who is the lead on it, and who is the support. And then we even get nitty-gritty about what does the support look like? Is this one that you've got 100% on your own and you don't even need my input because you just got it, take it, run with it? Or is this one that, like where finances come in? I pay the bills, but sometimes I need to consult with James because financial decisions can be big and important, and I might need his input or advice on something like, where do I want to pull this money for this, unexpected bill we have? So we talk about even what type of support. So we get into the nitty gritty with it. But what we find is that when home is running smoothly, when we have our systems in place, when there isn't, yeah, when everyone feels good about the division of labor, then it allows for more of the third pillar.
Which is connection.
Mhm. So really getting things running smoothly allows us to, one, not have those subtle resentments building up over time, which cause disconnect, but it also allows us to carve out the time for our connection, to have the space for it. Where when things are chaotic and you're just running from one thing to the next and what's for dinner tonight and who's doing this, it is hard to mentally and physically find the time for those deeper connective moments.
And connection, as we define it, is feeling seen, appreciated, and desired. And that desired piece is one of the ones that most couples, again, when they come and they work with us, they're like, hey, I want to feel more desire in the relationship because we're starting to feel a little bit like roommates. And ultimately, that only shows up when you've got the first two. Desire can exist and be more organic when both people are feeling seen and heard, but also appreciated, and then desire can grow.
And that's where, these are all kind of connected, right? And so we have the vision, which then kind of informs the strategy on how we're going to get there. And then the strategy, if it's not in place, can cause the disconnect, right? Or even feeling seen and appreciated for all the parts of the household I'm managing, right? Can then help me feel, or you're managing, can help us feel more connected,
Or the
right?
business, right?
Mhm.
Especially since we work together. For those of you that work together, this absolutely applies to how you're running your business together.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think, again, with in some ways all of them, but when we look at strategy, the unequal maybe distribution of labor can happen quite often with entrepreneurs, right? Because it's hard. We don't always have the clear boundaries between clocking in and clocking out, right? If someone's in a growth phase of their business, or they're scaling or growing or hustling or getting it off the ground, that can take a lot of time, and they're putting that into the business and maybe not into the home. So again, which then can cause the disconnect, right? So that's why we really need all three systems firing. So the connection, to dive into that a little bit more, like James said, is being seen, appreciated, desired is how we define that. And I think it's one of those things, and I'll say we were guilty of this, where early on in our relationship, that part was easy, right? We were in love and it was new and exciting. And so we didn't really have to effort at the connection. And so we spent more time when we were first married on the vision. What is this life we want to create together? And then how are we going to get there? And how are we going to set up our home life to be running smoothly? And then the connection, because it was there, we weren't really putting effort into it. And over time, it started to fade.
Yeah, it started to slide into the roommate phase because we also took it for granted. These other things feel more important. We're playing whack-a-mole, and so ultimately, because, hey, we're working towards this vision, we've got the strategy and the logistics and all these responsibilities, like, that's where it needs to go, and so the slide into roommate phase happens when we don't pay attention and don't create the space for that connection, and one of the biggest check engine lights, the warning, the red flag is gonna be, like, how is our intimacy and how is our sex life?
Yeah. And what we find is often if couples come to us and they're not having the intimacy or sex they desire, we also kind of look that as like the tip of the iceberg, right? Because that is often, if that is not going well, often there are things underneath it that are the obstacles, right? They're not communicating well. One person is feeling resentful of this, that, or the other. They don't have a shared vision. So they're spinning in circles, right? And so that can be the indicator, right? The thing we see on top, and there's a lot underneath it that we dive into and help unpack that then makes connection and intimacy more available.
Yeah, and so just kinda do a little self-reflection. It's like, okay, well, does that resonate? Like, how is our sex life right now? How is our emotional intimacy, our physical intimacy, which is the affectional type of intimacy, not sex. That sexual intimacy is its own category. So it's like, well, how is that? So you have frequency. Okay, well, are we having it frequently enough? Like, yes or no? And then there's also the quality of it,
Is
right?
it connective or is it just routine?
Absolutely. Do we have the emotional intimacy wrapped up with the sexual intimacy? Are we feeling that those hungry eyes, that electric connection, the stuff that was super easy to just exist in the early days of the relationship that now takes a little bit more intention to manufacture and create the space for it to actually show up in these long-term marriages, especially the more tired we get, and especially the more kids that we have, and especially the more responsibilities that we have
More businesses we
the
have.
more businesses, the more email addresses that we have. It all comes into that. And so just doing a quick little reflection on, how am I feel like they're probably getting the sex that they want because there's a frequency to it, but am I also really enjoying it? We had a client that we actually just spoke with yesterday and he was like, I love burgers, but sometimes I want a steak. And so she's like, man, I've been giving him all these burgers. And he's like, I know.
Trying to keep him fed.
Yeah, trying to keep this man fed, and he's just like, "I want a steak." Like, we can slow down. It doesn't have to be about just feeding that monkey. It can be about the enjoyment of it, the
Savoring the
savoring the experience of it. We're not just trying to fuel ourselves with this. We're trying to create rocket fuel from this. And so connection is where the rocket fuel shows up that allows us to work towards our vision, that allows us to do that day to day. So connection is a huge piece, and it's the third pillar, but probably, especially when we're married, it's the most important.
Yeah. So the other thing too, and I think I was guilty of this, is just I think there is somewhat of a societal narrative that over time the intimacy, the spark just fades, right? And while I think there is some truth to that, right? And we talk about this in our book and other places, but where our brains are switching we're primarily running off of dopamine early on in a relationship and those dopamine hits, and that does change more into like oxytocin, which is this longer term relationship, more bonding kind of emotional connection hormone. And that does change, and there's a reality to that, but it doesn't mean that the spark has to die out. And I think I just kind of thought earlier on, and maybe a lot of people do, that's just, oh, the longer you're together, you just don't really have that spark anymore. And while it does change, I don't think it has to go away. And I think through our experiences and a lot of the couples we have worked with, what we've seen is that if you put intentional effort into the connection, the intimacy, the spark, the fire there can actually come back even stronger than it was early on in the relationship. Earlier on, it might have been more spontaneous and now it's a little more responsive, but at the same time, you can have deeper connection, right? Because now I've had all these years of knowing you and trusting you and you seeing all these sides of me, like the intimacy and connection can actually be deeper and stronger than it was early on in the relationship, which makes that spark burn more brightly.
Yeah, and this is the weatherproofing of your marriage for the lifelong success that you envisioned whenever you signed up for it. So if the vision isn't necessarily clear, you're not on the same page about that, the strategy isn't really working super awesome, and the connection feels frayed, over time, that's what creates crisis in the relationship. And it's so easy to just be intentional about these three areas. It's easy, but not simple because it does take time. It does take a little bit of work, a little bit of effort, and a good solid plan. And hey, plug for really great guides that can take you through that process so you don't have to create it yourself. Because if it's coming from you and you're bringing it to them, it can always feel a little clunky because they're like, well, why? Like, I do that. Why are you bringing that up? It brings up defensiveness sometimes. And so having that external party to help you weatherproof your marriage before it gets to the crisis phase, so valuable.
Well, and I would say even sometimes, a lot of times in life, the crises are external, right? Something happens external to the relationship that puts a lot of strain on. Someone gets sick, a parent dies, like whatever it might be,
Weird
right?
shit happens
Someone
in
loses
the
their
world.
job, right? Like something happens. And if it is so much easier to weather those storms if we are solid, right? If our relationship is on solid ground and functioning with these three pillars in place, then we can handle the external crises much better, right? Because if we have an external crisis and we are not solid, then
It becomes us against each other.
yes, it can become internal. The problem becomes internal as well as external rather than us against the problem.
And us against the problem is a phrase. And that's one of the one of the main things we see when we start working with couples is we start to see where they're looking at each other as the problem and but we're like, what are the challenges? They're not necessarily problems. What are the challenges? Because life is always going to give you challenges. Life is always going to give you problems. And the idea is like, if everybody's going to have problems, just make sure that you like the ones that you've got. So
I would, okay.
Yeah, when we look at this from a higher level, and this is Angela put this one together in one of our newsletters, and this was fantastic. So here's the deal. Here are the three pillars. It's vision, strategy, and connection.
And with these three, we recognize that most couples have at least one, if not two. And so you might think about which one or two are we doing really well in right now, and what's the one that's lacking. And we're going to explain why it's important to have all three. And James is going to tell my little.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got vision, strategy, and connection, and the intentional successful couples need and have all three. Because if you just have a vision and a strategy without connection, now you're roommates. You're
Or
great
business partners.
partners, right? And that phrase partnership comes up. If you have a vision and connection, but no strategy, you're just in chaos. You don't know where you're going.
Well, your day-to-day is a little crazy because you don't have the structures, the systems in place. So,
And if you have a strategy and connection, but no vision, you're on the hamster wheel. You're just working and you're taking that rowboat and you're spinning it in circles, not going anywhere. And so all three of them are super important. And those are the three plates. If you're going to keep any three plates spinning in your life, keep those three plates spinning in your marriage.
great. If you would like more information on those, so we do have our free school community and we have a free resource on each of these three pillars. So you go to school.com/love intentionally. Again, it's free. You can go to the classroom and get the free resources on this stuff.
The one for vision is our bucket list. It's like, what are all the cool things that we want to do, be, have, and give within our life? When you get to the strategy section, it's our weekly marriage meeting. And that's where we get to cover really like definitely the strategy, definitely the connection piece in that on a weekly basis. And you can always touch in on the vision a little bit, right? So, okay, all of these are in service of the greater vision. And when you get into our connection one, we have sex for busy couples because entrepreneurs are busy. Heck, even if you're not, if you're just married and you got life and kids, like life is busy. And so we have that resource to help give you a framework to create some sexual intimacy in your relationship today.
That is connective. The point of that too is not just to have a sexual experience, but it's a little template that tells you how to get the most bang for your buck there, right? So to make sure the sexual intimacy actually feels like intimacy and not just sex.
Yeah. And then if you want to go a layer above that and go, or maybe a little layer deeper in that, the next courses, which cost a little bit of money in the vision category, we have the creating your family mission statement and values. Like, okay, well, what are these value systems? When you get over into this strategy pillar, that's our smoothly running household. Like we were talking about earlier, hey, here's all the different things that keep this household running smoothly. Here's who's in charge. Here's who owns it. Here's who's supporting it. That one is a super vital thing to do, especially if you are in coming up to or recently have been through a transition and the household management hasn't changed yet. Get in front of that one. And then for the intimacy, we have our intentional intimacy course. This thing is fan-freaking-tastic.
That's all our tools.
All of our tools for intimacy, and it involves not just sex, but intimacy, right? And so how are we going to make sure that we're connecting on that deeper level in that particular area to keep the connection, to rebuild that fire, to get the spark back, to get back to the honeymoon phase, but not even just to the honeymoon phase, but better than it's ever been, which is absolutely possible, especially in long term marriage where you love each other deeply.
Yeah, so check those out. They're either free or low cost, the ones we all just mentioned, and we're always here to help. You can sign up for a discovery call. We'll chat with you, see how we can help. But hopefully, yeah, you'll put these 3 pillars, make sure they're all strong in your marriage.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Married and Magnetic. We're so grateful that you're here. This is your first episode and it rang some bells, brought somebody to mind. Please share the love. If you haven't yet left a review, please go ahead and leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment. Let us know what resonated the most. Let's help get this word out to the masses, y'all. Let's bring this love, this type of relating to the greater audience of the world, because more love is ultimately what's going to make this world a better place to live. So, thanks so much. We love you. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next episode. By the way, we're going to take a break. So if you're still listening to this,
Not in a couple episodes.
yeah,
We'll talk about
we'll talk about
that.
that soon. But we are going to have a summer hiatus in this season and then come back stronger with some other amazing guests.
Yeah. All right. Take
All
care,
right, bye.
y'all.
See you.